Welcome into episode 231 of The Night Shift. Kyle Grimard and Mike Stubbs are your hosts. And Mike, as we gear up towards the preseason and regular season for the reigning Memorial Cup champion London Knights, there's lots that we need to get through here throughout the show. There's been a multitude of signings that the team has had. There have been a lot of back and forth with training camp. We've had some great conversations with some players as well, but I feel like there's going to be a lot of questions answered over the next couple of weeks leading to the regular season beginning.
Well, sports is fun because it follows the same kind of routine every year. So the Knights reported for training camp, you go through fitness testing, you get on the ice, you play some scrimmages, and you hope to make it through to the green and gold game if you're trying to make the team. And if you're not already signed to the team or a returning player. And now we've had the green and gold game, and you hope to make it through to the preseason, and you just kind of hope to keep hanging around. We've told the stories before of Noah Abaflon and Noah Reed last year coming into a pretty stacked, pretty full roster. They just kept finding ways to still be around. And then they were a part of a Memorial Cup championship team. So that's ultimately what you're trying to do right now. And there were players who made it through to the green and gold game who then had that big opportunity under the brightest lights of training camp so far to go out and show what they did and what they could do. And that's exactly what took place. I think a lot of fans may have walked away saying, did you see Maxim Sokolovsky? Because he's very noticeable on the ice. He's 6'8", 225 pounds. Did you see him, or did I see this right? He toe-dragged two players and then fed a guy for a shot from the point. He's 6'8" and 225 pounds, but he actually did just that. Now, that's not something you're going to see him do a lot in games, but this is trying to show off everything you have. And hey, kudos to the Knights scouting staff too, because you didn't get a lot of viewings of Maxim Sokolovsky. You didn't get a lot of viewings of, say, Julian Brown, who was playing in the BCHL, another free agent signee of the London Knights. But even watching the video that they did, and of course with the contacts that everybody has and talking about the players, those two guys have really stood out at times in camp. There have been a lot of guys standing out in camp, but you have to in order to get to this spot. But here are two players, one taken in the import draft and one a free agent signee, who have made themselves known, and the Knights have lost, Kyle, a lot of defensemen. There are some big roles on defense, and they certainly are showing why they need to be in some big ones. And we're going to talk later on with Linus Funk, who might be, Kyle, what would you call him if you had to describe Linus Funk?
Arguably the most interesting player on the team. I mean, he comes from a completely different country. He has completely different cultures. He speaks multiple languages, and what he does in his spare time for fun is not what we normally do here in our spare time for fun, which is really interesting. So I'm excited for that conversation. But one of the things, Mike, you said, big body for such a young man, already 6'2", 6'3". That's going to be a trend you notice on the back end for the London Knights. And of course, we talked about a lot of spots being open, and you've mentioned a lot of players too, but, Henry Brustevich is going to be a big focal point of this defense. Jared Woolley, both of them are signed to the same team, the LA Kings. They are probably going to be defense partners for the London Knights, but, you have, Andoni Themis, who had a really strong year last year, who's probably going to get a larger role. I'm really excited about what PJ Fagan's going to be able to do with this team as well. So there are tons of opportunities, and that's what the Hunters said. Mark Hunter came in during a media day presser that you were doing, Mike, and he said, guys, there are roster spots to be filled on this team. Make sure you pop. And that was the key word that we had talked about in one of our earlier episodes, but popping. And I feel like you got a chance to see a lot of that, Mike, at the green and gold game.
You did. And it started off with a lot of offense. There were 7 shots on goal in the first 2.5 minutes. And you had saves being made at either end of the ice by Alexei Medvedev and Seb Gatto. Seb Gatto has been a big story in training camp. Kyle, you look at his first scrimmage. 55 saves was the final count on this in a shutout in his very first scrimmage as a London Knight.
Yeah, I mean, that's the strongest impression as you can possibly have. The Knights knew they were going to have, their one, at least potential 1A in Alexei Medvedev, with the departure of the tandem that they had last year, which was just a remarkable run. But I feel like the Hunters always like having a reliable second guy there. It puts a lot less pressure on whoever is your redeemed starter is, and it just kind of gives a good competition, but also a good brotherhood and a partnership. That's what you want in a goalie tandem, especially in junior hockey where there's so many ebbs and flows. It's a long season for a lot of guys who aren't used to playing that many games. We saw it in Kitchener, towards the end. Jackson Parsons played what felt like 85% of the games for the Kitchener Rangers. Now, he was great. He won goaltender of the year, but I think the Knights knew that having a reliable duo, God forbid if something happened in a series where maybe you get the best of him, you can't then roll into the next guy. That's your guy, that's your ride or die from the end. And we've seen it with teams that works. I go back to the Peterborough Petes with Michael Simpson, and he was their starter when they went on to win the OHL championship. But the Knights have always really relayed, a two goalie tandem. Even when, the Brett Brochu days, they would always try to fill that secondary role. It's always good to have a second guy. It's like the same thing from saying having depth on the defensive end, having depth up front. You don't want to rely on just one or two guys to do all of your scoring or rely on one or two defensemen to play 35 minutes a night. You like to have depth, and that is no different than at the goaltending position.
Well, we'll see what the Knights do. They had 5 goalies in camp heading into the green and gold game. The only guy that did not play was Charlie Weiss, and he's somebody who was drafted this past year and actually got an invite to Hockey Canada's under-17 camp. So he's already on the radar there. And you said it, Kyle, having that tandem. Look back to last year. Austin Elliott got to be really fresh, even through a long run, even through into the Memorial Cup. You, as a former goaltender, are a guy that can attest to what it's like at the end of a long season. So if you've played an awful lot, or even if you've been in a tandem, how are you feeling as a goalie when the playoffs arrive?
As a goalie, you always want to be, the guy that plays in every single game, but it's not feasible. Like, it's not a manageable thing, especially after grinding through a 60+ game season. Some guys go over and play the World Junior Hockey Championships. There's tons of travel, weekends are 3-3s. It's not capable on, especially a goaltender and the stress of the position. So having both guys, and especially too mentally knowing you're able to split the season. But for Austin Elliott, like you mentioned, he was given the nod to be the starter. You can mentally prepare for a couple of months span where you go, okay, I'm the guy for this time. I need to physically and mentally train and be ready to go come game one. And having that balance with Alexei Medvedev was a really good thing for him to have. And then it allowed him to have a staggering postseason and, of course, a Memorial Cup tournament. And then with Medvedev, you learn from those situations where now he's probably the guy where if the Knights do make a run and they become a playoff team, if they have that bounce back and forth, he can mentally prep for that playoff run where he's going to be the guy that gets leaned on. So it's a trickle-down effect that goes both ways. You always want to play every game as a goalie and even as a player too, but it's not physically capable. It wears you down. There's so much more mentally on a goaltender that you have to deal with staying focused. And I think both guys last year did a great job. So I think having a secondary guy it's so helpful for the long duration of a year.
Well, if you go back to the green and gold game, the offense eventually broke through pretty early with a couple of goals. And then there was a lull. There were more and more saves from all the goalies in the game. But you had Michael Zakharov, who is one of the most recent signees. He's a guy who is from Russia, had come over and had played. There are 3 Russian-born players on the London Knights right now in Maxim Sokolovsky, in Alexei Medvedev, and in Mike Zakharov. So he opened the scoring on a nice little feed. And then Ilon Legalic, a guy who is only 16, full of skill, he ties things at the other end. And if you're wondering about some of the new names, if you go back to the green and gold preview, there's an audio podcast on that. We actually went through all of the players remaining in camp, gave you a little tidbit, little story about who they are, where they were coming from. So if you're looking at getting a handle on some of the names that are still in camp and will head into the preseason, that's a way to do it because it breaks it down player by player. But it was 1-1 for a long, long time. And then it was Andoni Femus who put Team Gold ahead in the third period. And then Eddie Hickson, who played in the final game of the regular season last year in Erie, had played for the London Nationals. Beautiful tip. And he scores to make it 3-1. And then Jackson Cover, who he is just somebody that when he touches the puck anytime, anything can happen, and you see it. He will come charging through center ice. Such a great athlete and just go, 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 but has the skill to make things happen, and he winds up scoring a goal to make it 3-2. That's the way it ended. Guys who were not in the green and gold game, obviously, you've got defensemen like Sam Dickinson and Jared Woolley and Henry Brustevich. If Dickinson comes back to the OHL, remember he can play for the Sharks or he can play in the Ontario Hockey League. That's it. Rule changes may make that different for other 19-year-olds going forward, but right now, this is it. It is either NHL or OHL for Sam Dickinson, so he was not there. Mainstays on the blue line will, of course, be Henry Brustevich, who you mentioned, Kyle, and Jared Woolley. Up front, Sam O'Reilly did not play. Ben Wilmot did not play. Ben Wilmot is a guy who was born in Seattle, and his dad was actually a baseball player. But even from the age of like 1 or 2, he was turning everything into a hockey stick. So I don't know whether we're talking about rattles. I don't know, anything he could get his hands on. He was turning it into at 1 or 2. He hadn't even been exposed to the game. So he's naturally always just been around the game, turns into this excellent hockey player, and now is a member of the London Knights. But he did not play in the green and gold game. And then Evan Van Gorp did not play. And also Will Nickel did not play. But Will Nickel's been around the team, and if you haven't heard, Will had off-season upper body surgery, and so he's going to miss 4 to 6 months. So a January return would be best case scenario, but it will be in the second half for Will Nickel. And a lot of times injured players in sports will not be around teams because they're injured and they're working on their rehab, and you know, they're not a part of the team right then. It's just something that most sports teams do. I think we'll see Will Nickel an awful lot because, Kyle, he is that personality that you want to have around. Even with his arm in a sling, he's somebody who is upbeat, positive, laughing, joking, smiling. You want to have him there.
Yeah, we saw him around the facilities for a couple of days, training camp, Mike, and you know he had the brace on for a bit. He had the shock therapy on one of his spots in his back, but he's the first guy to say hi to you. He's hey Stubbsy, hey Kyle, what's going on, guys? And just he's in a great mood. He's watching guys practice. He loves the compete level. We've seen him time and time again come off the ice with the team. Guys like that are so magnetic to your team. They bring everybody's mood and positivity up. They're a guy you always want around regardless of what's going on, even in games where they maybe don't play as well. He comes off and he's interactive with the fans and he's signing stuff for kids, and it's such an infectious thing, and it's hard to do as a hockey player because you're so focused. So to find a guy or two like that here and there it's such a great thing for the London Knights team, and it makes the team so much tighter. Guys like that are the glue at what makes, an organization and a team, be so successful. And he was a big part of it last year in the Memorial Cup run.
He was. He led the London Knights in face-off percentage in the playoffs. And there you go. There's an example of a role that now needs filling for the first few months of the season because Will Nickel is not going to be there. So there's the example of jobs being open. There are spots, and that's what Mark Hunter was talking about. And one of those guys who we're going to see a lot doing things like that and jumping into some of those roles is Rene Van Bommel. And we had a chance to talk with Rene Van Bommel after his first scrimmage at training camp, where he realized he had another role that he may not have even seen coming. Here's our conversation with Rene. Rene, let's talk a little bit about this summer, but even today, present, being out on the ice the first time, you get called on to drop the gloves at one point. What was the first scrimmage like?
It's definitely the first 10 minutes. It's a little tough because you got to get your legs back under you. It's been 2 months since you played a game, and you're just trying to get back into it. But it was a good pace. Everyone was out there working hard and pushing. Like we're pushing each other on the bench. Everyone's up. But yeah, getting called on to fight. I was in that spot at one point, trying to prove myself and make the team. So I feel kind of honored that guys are picking me to try to prove themselves to. That means that I must be high up on people's list to go and fight.
Look at that. I love that. Let's talk about the last 2 months. How fast is a 2-month period after a Memorial Cup win go?
Yeah, it was short, but it's short for a good reason. I'd rather it be 2 months than 4, that's for sure. But you just got to jam your 4 months of training into 2, and I wouldn't have done it any other way this summer.
Being an area guy, you've got to take us to what you remember from your day with the Memorial Cup and who you got to spend it with.
Yeah, my day with the Cup, I took it to a hockey camp in Strathroy, Supreme it's called, and took a picture with the kids. I skated with them on the ice. And then there was another day camp there too, and they came and took pictures. I signed some autographs. It was really good. I got to give back to the community that gave so much to me and supported me even when I was playing in Strathroy. Before I was playing here with the Knights, the games were always packed, and everyone loves a hometown kid, and so that was nice. And then after that, I got to take it home. I got to celebrate with my family and my friends, and share it with Gorpy and Cow as well too, which was awesome.
Could you see yourself in the faces of some of those little kids?
Yeah, definitely. I could see myself looking at the cup, and they're asking questions like, "Can I touch it, or is it bad luck?" And I would be the same way. Like I remember when we went and visited the Stanley Cup at the Hockey Hall of Fame with my family. I still haven't touched it, so I'm like, no, I want to win it one day, hopefully. So,
touching the Memorial Cup now, you can do that anytime. How many times do you think you have touched it this summer?
A lot. I kept good care of it. It was my baby for the 2 days I had it. That's for sure. When I took it home, I strapped it in the front seat of my car. I just didn't keep it out of my sight.
London Knights forward Rene Van Bommel, one of the big Memorial Cup celebrations in the area over the summertime, and somebody who is so good on the forecheck, scored that first goal of the OHL Championship Series. Oshawa had gone ahead, and then Rene Van Bommel scores. And something just felt okay once that happened. And he's a guy that has that ability to just come up clutch. He had a hat trick against the Sarnia Sting in a game where the Knights just needed that. And so he's somebody that will now get big opportunities in order to go out and make some things happen this year. So Rene Van Bommel also realizing if somebody who is lined up with you wants to show that, yeah, part of my game can be to drop the gloves, he's got to do it. I love that about him. But what does that say about his character, Kyle, where he's telling the story where a player wants to fight him? He doesn't have to fight, but he's realizing, you know what? I've been you before. I got to do this for you.
I can totally see the other perspective where a player goes, no, don't fight me. I need to be healthy for the regular season. But Rene almost feels like it's an honor for him because he was a guy in that situation where he was trying to pop. He was trying to prove himself. So whether it's dropping the gloves, making a big hit, strong on the forecheck, so he understands that perspective and that role of being a player that needs to prove themselves. And now he's one of the players that's getting pushed up on, that is being, almost challenged in that situation. And that's a badge of honor for a player like that. And a lot of guys I can see in a situation would kind of shake it off and be like, nah, I'm not fighting you. Like I got bigger things I got to worry about. No, he's taking it as a badge of honor, and he's almost honoring it to an extent. He goes, okay, you want to prove yourself to this team? I'm the guy to do it for. Let's go. And that's just the mentality he has. He's really come into his own. He's been incredibly mature this whole time. He sits at front during the media meetings. He's used it as an example, and he loves it. He thrives with it because he understands the role of what he's going to be tasked for this season as a representative and one of the older players now for the London Knights.
And he is committed to Lake Superior State University. And he's somebody who is now going to be able to stretch that hockey career even further beyond the OHL. And I can't wait to see what that all becomes. And we can also have an interview that we did with Josh Sweetland of the Ontario Hockey League. And that's available on that Green and Gold game preview at the end of it. And if you want to hear about the new streaming service that the OHL has, that's where you can find that. Just fast forward through to the end. And one of the things that Josh talks about is the fact that Flow Hockey, which will now be home for OHL streaming, if you are a subscriber, you get AHL, you get ECHL, you get some of the NCAA leagues. And what that will allow you to do is follow former players as they go on. And those stories certainly become so interesting to watch guys after they finish in the Ontario Hockey League. So that will be an option to see where some of these guys go. We can say, hey, they've committed here, they've committed there, they're going there, they're playing in the American Hockey League. You can now check in on them with that subscription. Okay, let's move to Logan Hawery, who is another guy who's going to step into bigger roles. We can look back to last year, Kyle, and if you prorate Logan Hawery's goals per game over the season, he is number 3 among 16-year-old goal scorers in the OHL. So while he was on a very veteran team, he spent some time in the GOJHL. When he was on the ice, he was making things happen. He goes into his hometown of Barrie and scores twice. So big moments, no problem. And Logan Hawery now at 17 is going to take that next step and is going to be able to be given more responsibility on the ice, more time. And we had a chance to sit down and talk with Logan about his summer. Logan, let's talk about the summer. Short, very short.
Very short.
How recent does the Memorial Cup feel and being out there skating in morning skates and 3-on-3s?
Yeah, it feels like we were just here like last week. It was, short off season, but really good to be back and happy to see all the faces again. So,
how much do you spend on the ice in the summer as opposed to, obviously it's every day during the regular season, but how much were you out there?
I'd say quite a bit. When I first got home, took a little bit of a break, but by midsummer I was on for like 4 or 5 times a week. So yeah.
And what sorts of things are you working on at that point?
A lot of power skating twice a week with my skating coach, Paul Matheson. Really good. And then just skill work. A couple of summer leagues that I was in, getting games in, and yeah.
Do you do much strength training?
Every day I'm in the gym, in the morning before I skate. And, a lot of plyometrics and speed work, and then lots of weights as well.
Seeing last year, knowing what you guys did, and now knowing where your role goes on this team, how are you feeling right now?
Yeah, I feel awesome. The team's looking great again. Obviously last year learned so much from the older guys, and the team that we had was special, and really looking forward to carry that on to this year.
What do you think you took away from watching some of those guys and then ultimately from watching that team win?
Yeah, it was crazy. I just learned so much from the older guys, and like Cowan and Barkey and Dickinson, things that they were doing on and off the ice just helped me a lot, and now I'm really confident going into this year.
London Knights forward Logan Hawery. And we talk about players who scouts are going to be watching this year. They're going to be watching Logan Hawery really closely.
You know what, Mike? And they're going to be watching his release point. Last year it was a major focal point. He was able to do it at the OHL level. St. Thomas Stars, what does he do when he gets, sent down, quote unquote? But his first game, he goes out and he scores 4 goals. And if there's one thing that you want to be able to do really well in whatever sport, I feel like scoring goals is a pretty big one. It's always good to have that one knack that you're really good at. Maybe it's your speed, maybe it's your forechecking, maybe it's your IQ or instinct. Logan Hawery, there's no question, it's his shot. Like, he can shoot the puck like no other. And the one thing I noticed, Mike, during that conversation with him, very focused, he had his eye set and ready to go. He seemed locked in. He just gotten off the ice after a scrimmage. You can tell that he wants to take that next step, and he is very serious about it. He's been putting the work in. He seems like he's in a great spot right now, but man, that shot is going to catch some people this year for sure.
Well, those are 2 guys who are returnees. We also had a chance to talk with 2 new players on the London Knights. And we hinted at Linus Funk earlier in the podcast. We'll get to him in just a moment. But Braden Clark comes with a very interesting story as well, because he's another guy that comes with hockey pedigree, with a dad who played in the National Hockey League. Chris Clark was a captain with the Washington Capitals and also played for the Calgary Flames. To be a captain in the National Hockey League, Kyle, you don't just show up for work. You are somebody who does the things the right way. That's who you are in order to wear a captain's C at any time. And we've got Braden Clark who can turn to his dad and say, all right, here's a situation. What do you think? And so now we had an opportunity to talk with Braden about his road, because it's an interesting one. He's coming out of the NCAA last year with Providence, and it is that NCAA rule change that has made this possible. So your hockey career has taken you a lot of different places. NCAA, certainly. You played in the USHL, but It kind of begins even before you began, because your dad played in the National Hockey League.
Yeah.
So what's it like when you're a youngster to realize maybe what that means?
I mean, it's great. I'm really fortunate to have a dad who's played and who's gone through everything that I've gone through, especially in like the ups and downs. And he's great to help me get through that stuff, help me stay motivated. And he knows what it takes to get to that level. So it kind of helps me all growing up when I was little and realizing the sacrifice you have to take and all that stuff. So he was a big part of my childhood growing up and still is. And it's just awesome. I'm really fortunate to have him.
played in Calgary, played in Washington, and that makes you, growing up, a fan of what, maybe those two teams or one of them?
Yeah, I'm a fan of all the teams he played for. Obviously, we live in Columbus now, so huge Blue Jackets fan, but I always have a spot in my heart for Calgary and Washington and even Boston when he played there for a little bit. But, yeah, so, I mean, every team he's played for, I love it. So, I mean, it's great.
Let's talk about your road, because you start off, you play for the Junior Blue Jackets. Are they still called the Junior Blue Jackets?
Yeah, Ohio AAA Blue Jackets.
Okay, Ohio AAA Blue Jackets.
Yeah, that's what you call them.
So you play there growing up. What was it like playing hockey in Columbus as kind of minor hockey was really taking off?
Yeah, you know, like when I first started, it wasn't as big as it is now. It's definitely grown a ton. We got a bunch of pros that come back during the summer and skate out there. So it's definitely grown a lot since I started there. And it's a great organization with Ed Ginger running that. And it took a lot for him to get that up and go. And he's grown that hugely. So it's been awesome growing up in Columbus. Obviously, Buckeyes, they won the national championship last year. But hockey's a growing sport there, and it's awesome.
Yeah, the Buckeyes still rule the city, though, right?
Oh, yeah.
And then now, national championship. What was the city like when that happened?
I mean, I wasn't there. I was up in Providence, but I bet you it was going crazy. Like, they shut down most of the highways during, any game. It gets Buckeye Nation there.
Let's talk about your road to Providence. Did you feel that you wanted to go NCAA growing up? Was that kind of the destination?
Yeah, it was always a destination. Obviously, I got drafted USHL, and I think it was 13th round to London. So they kind of knew, and I kind of knew I wanted to go NCAA route. And then obviously with this rule that changed this past year, I'm really fortunate to have a year left in my eligibility to play juniors, and I always wanted to come to London. So it was a great opportunity, and I talked to the Hunters, and they wanted me here. So I'm glad that they wanted me, and it's a great opportunity here. But yeah.
Since being drafted, how much did you follow the London Knights and kind of what was going on?
I mean, I always follow them on social media, but I wasn't that into it. And then obviously just recently, 2 weeks ago, I've been kind of all over it. So, but it's been awesome.
And now here you are.
Yeah.
Welcome to London and good luck.
Thank you.
London Knights forward, Braden Clark. So one of the overagers. Right now the Knights have 3 overagers on their roster. So you've got Caden Hawkins, who's from St. Louis, and you've got Braden Clark, who is from Ohio, and you also have Noah Abaflon. And Noah back in camp has shown some great flashes as well in what he's been doing. And if you want to follow somebody in terms of fitness, if you want to know, what it takes to be in shape, you just tap Noah Abaflon on the shoulder and say, hey, what have you been doing lately? And it might be, well, I grabbed a couple of 35-pound kettlebells and I went for a stroll through the neighborhood. Just doing that, just putting a little extra on. He's got some fantastic things that he has done fitness-wise to get himself ready. So those are the 3 overagers on the roster right now. And then Linus Funk is one of the other European import selections. He comes from Sweden, and we can go back to something that Knights Associate General Manager Rob Simpson told us, Kyle, when he was selected. He got a text immediately from Kasper Halttunen. And Kasper said, I played against that guy. He's good. And that's a pretty good check mark in a box when you've got a player of Kasper's skill who knows who was tough to play against. And he's saying, yeah, that guy, he's tough to play against.
Especially as a guy as offensive as Kasper Halttunen is too, right? He's, I'm sure, had his way in a lot of offensive situations. So when there's a defenseman that can stop him, or almost he gives him a little bit of respect, that's when you've done a good thing. I mean, Kasper Halttunen had 3 games in the OHL finals where he had hat tricks in. He had 8 goals and what was it, like a 12-period pace or whatever it was? It was
9 in the finals this year. 9 in the finals.
And so that kind of tells you everything you need to know about it. So that's very high praise to Linus Funk.
Definitely. Well, let's find out a little bit more about a guy we're going to be talking with a lot, because so far you could give him the title most interesting man on the London Knights. Here's our conversation with Linus. Let's talk a little bit about coming all the way from Sweden to London. What are you noticing around here? Maybe what are you missing from home that we don't have?
Yeah, well, first off, what I'm missing is probably the food. Yes, I think it's a little better in Sweden, but just coming here, it's totally different. I mean, the whole like community and everybody just focused on London Knights, so it's so amazing.
Nice. Okay, so let's focus in on the food a little bit, because in Sweden you're eating a lot of fish a lot of time, right?
Yeah.
So would you have like fast food fish, or is this like you've got good places to go and get fish?
Yeah, good places to. I often fish it myself. So,
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
So what do you fish for?
It's called Arctic char.
Ooh.
It tastes like salmon, so.
Yeah.
But yeah.
It's really close to
Yeah,
salmon.
yeah.
No way. And then do you prepare it too?
Yeah, it depends. Sometimes like I'm in the mountains, I just put it on the fire.
Look at that.
Yeah.
So you go up into the mountains, fish for Arctic char, cook it over an open fire?
Oh yeah.
You camp a lot?
Yeah, a few times, yeah. I think
Okay.
it's super fun, so I try to do it in the summers.
Nice. Well, hey, you'll be able to get back there in the winter, though. Now your focus is hockey. So here we go. What do you know about the OHL?
Yeah, I mean, first off, I didn't know that much. You know, from Sweden, it's not a lot of people talk about it, but you know, when like as soon as I got drafted here, you know, that's just I've been looking old games and old and it's just super fun. You know, the whole like the fans and everything. So super excited to play games.
Talk to us about the kind of player you are. What are fans going to see? What do you do?
Yeah, I mean, I'm an offensive two-way defenseman. Likes to join the rush. Great plays in the offensive zone, but, you know, I'm still big, can make hits, and, you know. So, yeah.
You've played internationally for Sweden before. What was that like?
Yeah, it was good. It was super fun. Yeah, I mean, the best players from the whole world. So it was a super fun experience, you know, just going against really good players. So
it's hard to beat Sweden's jersey, like the
nice.
Gold,
yeah,
the blue.
Nice.
Do you guys ever talk about that, or is it just kind of that's our jersey?
Yeah, we don't talk about it, you know, just had it since you grow up. So
what are you hoping to do here this year? What kind of a year you hope to have?
Yeah, I mean, just develop much as a player. I mean, everybody I talked to told me that London's the place to be, you know, if you want to be a good hockey player. So just develop, basically.
And your English is fantastic.
Yeah,
where does that come from?
Yeah, we learn English in school since we're a child. So
London Knights defenseman Linus Funk. Remember, he is 6'3" as well. He's got that creativity, but somebody who, when you're cooking Arctic char over an open fire in the mountains, I got to know more. What are you doing the next day? What are you doing later that day?
Mike, I was impressed that you knew what it was. Like when he said it, you were like, "Oh yeah, I know what that is." And I'm sitting there going, "I know what salmon is."
You know what? My wife and I had our anniversary recently, and we went out, and Arctic char was the special, and I actually said, "Oh, that's that." That's the only reason I would be able to identify anything about Arctic char. And it wasn't cooked over an open fire. It was still very good, but it wasn't cooked over an open fire. I wouldn't mind trying it over an open fire. It'd be pretty good that way, too.
You would even go in the mountains and cook it and catch it yourself?
I don't fare well in camping situations. We took the kids camping one time. And we were out with my brother-in-law and his partner, and we were having fun, and the kids were making s'mores, and we didn't clean up the campsite. And we went to bed probably about 1 in the morning and woke up at probably about 1:30 in the morning to the largest raccoons that have ever been raccooned. And they were ravaging our campsite. And they weren't afraid of you in any way. I was very afraid of them. So that was
probably not the first time they ravaged either.
Not even. These things were the size of cows. And they took care of our campsite, and we let them, and then we never went camping again. Kids, we're done.
No, listen, my camping stories don't involve those ravagings, but I can tell you that's, cooking fish that you caught on your own in the mountains is one of the most impressive things I've heard from a teenager, and I can't wait to learn more about him.
That is next level. Next up for the London Knights, the Sarnia Sting, home and home in the preseason. And the first one will be on Friday August the 29th at 7 p.m. at Canada Life Place. And then it's Saturday, August the 30th in Sarnia. We'll have coverage at 980cfpl.ca. More stories from guys, more stories about players. And then we will recap what happened on weekend number 1 and get set for weekend number 2. And then there's a weekend off. And then we'll see the raising of the Memorial Cup Championship banner on September the 19th. And the regular season will be here. But so far, so great in terms of a team that has lost a lot of players. What they have done to bring in new players and how those players have, to steal Mark Hunter's word, popped in camp. This is already a fun year.
Yeah, I don't envy the decisions that the Hunters have to make on who's going to make this roster or any decisions moving forward. But you mentioned it, Mike. It's exciting and impressive to see what they've done, despite the fact that normally after a Memorial Cup win, you expect a few players to no longer be on your team moving forward. And, there's a renewed energy within the team, within the organization. And, there are still expectations. Like, they want to go back to the playoffs. They want to defend their title. And that's not something that any of them take lightly. So I am excited for it. Mike, you've put out a preview so far of the breakdown of the rosters between the Knights and the Sarnia Sting and what we can expect from the teams. That's up on any platforms that you stream your podcasts on. It's a really great breakdown for some in-depth stuff. Mike, I don't know how you keep track of the hundreds, if not thousands of players that sit in your mind, but I've had to listen to it already. It's a great breakdown, so go check it out.
We will be back with a new podcast next week. Remember to subscribe to the Knights YouTube channel. We'll be here once a week, but also watch Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Curious Cast Network, wherever you get your shows, because we'll pop up some special audio versions of things going on as well. Kyle, enjoy the end of the week.
Yes, you as well, Mike, and we'll see you for the preseason matchups and get ready for the home opener.